Hi everyone, I'm Tirza Schaefer and I wanted to tell you that I'm about to launch a new book. I've just finished the raw version. It's still needs editing and stuff, but I would like to read to you from it so far, but please bear in mind it's not had its final edit yet. So I hope you enjoyed. This is the first chapter. Her Badass Bikers, Chapter 1, A Biker at the Beach. The young man lying in the sun a bit further down towards the water stretched out in the sunlight and sighed. Under other circumstances, she wouldn't have thought anything of it, but today was a festival in town and she was the only one at the stretch of the beach because everyone else had joined the festivities. So there was no reason for the man to lie so close. If the beach had been more populated, he wouldn't seem to be close because there would be plenty of other people and she wouldn't have thought anything of it. But as they were the only two people here, she found it strange that he had not moved a bit further down the beach for more privacy. He was tall, muscular, with abs and pecs to die for. His shaggy blonde hair was tied back in a man bun. Surfer boy, she thought. Without the board, though, not that it would have been of any use. The water was hardly moving at all. There was no surf whatsoever. His skin was tanned to a dark gold color. It was covered in sexy ink, and his blue eyes had pierced into her soul as he has walked past, caught hers for a moment, and nodded in greeting. He had not looked at her again ever since. Ava had waited for a while for him to either try to rob her or come on to her. Not that she thought he would do either, and he hadn't. She still had no idea why he would lie so close to her on an otherwise entirely empty stretch of beach. She had finally resigned herself to the fact that he didn't harbor ulterior motives and taken out her book, reading glasses and hairband from her large weathered beach bag that had definitely seen better days when he rose and strode over to her. Sorry to bother you, he began, pointing at her hair. I really like the blonde with the blue. Thank you, yours too. I don't have any blue in my hair. With a confused look, he ran his fingers through his hair and got stuck in his man bun. Your eyes. Her lips stretched into an amused smile, and her own grey-blue eyes sparkled with mirth. Okay, thanks. He returned her smile, but it came across as rather nervous and somewhat self-conscious. Because he so closely portrayed the proverbial bad boy meets surfer type, it somehow clashed with his appearance. Ava waited for him to say what he really wanted to tell her. Sorry I bothered you, he murmured after a while of awkward silence, turned and slapped his own hat. Stop it. The last word was a mere hiss, but she had heard it. I'm Ava, Ava offered, hoping he might find the courage to ask whatever it was he wanted to know when she introduced herself to him. The younger man stopped in his tracks and turned around slowly. Nice to meet you, Ava. You too. Her voice trailed off in the unspoken inquiry after his name, but he didn't offer it. Obviously, she had misinterpreted his intention. He turned away once more, went back to his towel and sat down, digging his phone out from inside his pile of clothes and dialed. Hey, it's me. No, yes, I can't, he groaned. I just can't. No, I can't just pass you on to her. Come over and ask her yourself, for fuck's sake. Ava had enough of this drama and stood up and started to gather her belongings. Shit, she's leaving. I've got to go. Surfer boy stuck his phone back into his pile of clothes and jumped up, staring at her. His right hand lifted, almost reaching out to her before it hovered at the same place in the air, his expression one of blatant distress. By then, Ava's patience was worn thin. What? She called over to him. His voice trailed off before he tried again. Please don't go. What do you want? You're behaving like a creep right now. Shit. He averted his face, raked his hand through his hair, and when his fingers caught in his bun again, he tore out the elastic band and flung it on his towel before he turned back to her. You don't remember me, do you? He asked. I don't think I've ever seen you before, she said, shaking her head in confusion. I'm sure I would have remembered seeing you. You used to live in Calloway Lane a few years back, didn't you? He answered with another question. Yes. You were with that dickhead who didn't appreciate you and ran around with. This time he had phrased it as a statement. It was Ava who turned away now. She had long left that time of her life behind her, and she didn't appreciate being reminded of this darker phase of her personal history. You looked after me a few times when my mum went out. I'm Jax. Ava whisked back around to face him. Jax, she gasped. But you were so small and skinny and shy and... Well, I grew up. Oh my God, Jax, why didn't you say so at once, you silly? Come here. Ava opened her arms and walked towards him, wrapping them around his middle, and hugged him tightly before stepping back and raising her gaze to his face. That must be 15 years ago now. My goodness, you've grown. Look at you. How is your mum? We don't speak. Oh, why not? Because she was seeing your man when she went out and you babysat me for her. I knew but couldn't say anything. I've felt really bad ever since, and let's just say her character hasn't changed for the better. She has destroyed several families and they all hate me now by association, even though I never did anything, so I decided to stay away. Is that why you always told me I was the prettiest princess you'd ever seen and that you'd marry me when you grow up? No, that wasn't out of pity. I had a giant crush on you. He grinned self-consciously and raked his fingers through his hair again in that now already familiar nervous gesture. Yes, I thought you did, but I thought you were so cute, bringing me flowers and pastries from the bakery. And they were your favorite, he said quietly. Come, sit with me in the shade and tell me about what has become of you. Ava was too happy to see little Jax all grown up, and that relationship he had referred to had not lasted long. She was long over it. Admittedly, the betrayal and cheating had stung badly, but she hadn't been in love with her ex-boyfriend, so that she would have missed his absence after the breakup. However, she wanted to know all about Jax now. You sure I'm not disturbing you? He asked. Are you crazy? I'm so happy to see you. Come, tell me. He picked up his stuff and followed her to her sun shelter that looked like a half-open shell sticking out of the sand on his side, where she sat down in the shade again, waiting for him to spread out his towel beside her and sit down. So tell me about you. Hang on, you didn't put on any sunblocker, did you? Hey, I'm grown up. You don't have to mommy me anymore. I'm a big boy. Who still forgets to apply sunscreen? Her left eyebrow rose in a stern look, daring him to contradict. I forgot it at home, he mumbled. You can have some of mine. Come, I'll apply it for you. She retrieved her sunscreen from her bag, put some on her hands, and even though Jax protested, she started to apply it on his arm nearest to her. But then Jax jumped up. Ava, no, please. She gasped at his violent reaction and let her hands sink. I'm sorry, I can't. Jax, remember how you used to tell me everything? We're friends, right? Yes. Well, you can still talk to me. I never betrayed your confidence, did I? No, you didn't. Then tell me what's wrong. I'm not the boy you used to know, he said quietly, sitting down again beside her. Tell me, she said softly, handing him the sunscreen. He only sighed and put it down without using any. Look at me. I'm a grown man now. course I can see that. I'm not blind. Then stop treating me like I was still 10 years old. I'm 27 now. She realized she had indeed fallen into her old role and expected him to be the little boy again. But she still hadn't caught up with the last 15 years of Jack's transformation and maturity. I'm sorry I have to catch up with your last 15 years, she admitted. Forgive me, I didn't mean to upset you or make you feel like a little boy again. I'm just trying to get my head around that the little boy I used to know is now this big young man. I'm not big. His indignant tone combined with a pat on his ripped stomach made her chuckle. Not big as in overweight, as in tall and muscular and pretty badass with all that ink covering your body. He grinned at her and his eyes sparkled once again. You think I look badass? Yes, I bet all the girls run after you. I'm not into girls. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything by it. I guess I was just remembering your daily proposals of marriage. It's perfectly all right that you're gay. Fuck. Again, he raked his fingers through his hair in that signature gesture of his. I'm not gay. But you said, I'm not into girls. I like women, grown-ass women. Oh, I didn't mean girls as an underage or anything, Jax. I meant your age. I know, and I'm telling you, they don't interest me. Ava looked at him in consternation. I like mature women, always have, about 15 years older than me. He looked at her expectantly, and it took several seconds for the penny to drop. Oh, oh, oh! Her mouth stayed in that O shape for a little longer while her mind tried to digest this new piece of information. Jack's gaze burned into her lips before he leveled it at her eyes once more. Yes. Oh. I don't know what to say. Why don't you tell me about yourself? All that happened in the last 15 years, so I have a chance to catch up and bridge the gap from boy to man? He shook his head. I'm doing my best here to not be all over you, Ava. That's why I didn't want you to touch me. You're so hot and he broke off and swore under his breath. As flattering as it was to have a swoon-worthy man of Jack's caliber declare sexual interest in her, she wasn't ready yet to talk about it. Her emotions were still too much in turmoil, and visions of the little boy and his trollop of a mother flashed before her inner eyes. This reminded her of a former neighbor who had lived in the same street and had been close to Jack's mother, another woman who didn't have a moral compass of any sort. I met Elaine in town a couple of years ago. She said you turned out bad and were in prison. I didn't want to believe it. I ran away from home. I had to survive, so I prospected for an MC club, drugs, arms, that sort of thing. So yes, I took the fall for the club when the police got too hot on our tails. You should know. I hope you left that behind you now. Nope. Actually, I haven't, but they changed and cleaned up. They're legit now, and it's the only family I know that I have had. You can't really count my mom as family, can you? What about your dad? He was the first person I went to when I ran away. He told me to get away before his wife and their children saw me and not to return. I'm so sorry, Jax. Ava's heart was breaking for him in that moment. What he must have been through to turn to the only other person who should feel responsible for him and love him to be turned away like a street dog. Thanks. Well, I found a home of sorts, and they're good to me, looked after me all the time I was incarcerated, and had a job for me at their garage when I got out. I repair cars and bikes now. I told them I'm not doing anything illegal anymore. They respect that and gave me their word that they've changed their operations when I went down. It's all legit now. Excuse me. I hope you're right and I didn't lie to you. Jack shook his head, his features expressing his conviction that they had told him the truth and that he definitely wasn't a part of any illegal operations anymore. I've saved up and got my own place. It's shabby and I have to do it up, but I've got nothing but time now. I like to work with my hands. Help me keep my head straight in prison as well. When I saw you here at the beach the other day, I decided to come back and see if I can find you again. Ava's eyes widened. Why didn't you come over at once the first time you saw me? I was with the guys from the club. They can be a bit scary when you don't know them. I wanted to catch you alone so they wouldn't scare you off. I know my ink makes some people anxious already, but I remember you were seeing that guy who had a couple of tattoos after you threw out your two-timing boyfriend. So I hope you'd be okay once you knew who I am. Ava looked at him, letting her eyes roam over his upper body, taking in his tattoos. Some she recognized as tattoos that members of the Makani MC wore, the most infamous biker gang on Hawaii. Others she had never seen before. Her gaze came to rest on his pierced nipple. Does it hurt? She gestured. Not unless you try to tear it out. He grinned. I've got another one further down. Oh, Ava blushed, not sure whether she wanted to know that. Yes, she had fantasized about him before she had known who he was, but this felt weird now. Why don't we just drive up the coast and have dinner on the way? He suggested. My car isn't working right now, she said. I don't need a baby seat anymore, Ava. I was going to take you on my bike. Would you like that? He gestured to the parking spaces at the top of the beach by the road, and when she turned to look, she saw his bike parked there, a Harley. The machine was sexy as fuck, gleaming in the sunlight and teasing her eyes with its shining splendor. She imagined sitting behind him, her thighs hugging his, her arms wrapped around his middle. Heat spread through her loins unbidden. I think I would like that, yes. I've always wanted to ride a bike again. Jack smiled. Well, today is your lucky day. They laughed and she kissed his cheek before he could move away. I'm really happy to see you again, she said. It's still really weird that you're all big and that, and I have some serious catching up to do still, but I'm really happy, honestly. Ava laid her hand on his for emphasis when she added, and I'm glad you survived prison and are not back into illegal stuff. Thank you. Yes, I don't want to go back there ever. A haunted shadow appeared in his eyes when he remembered his time locked away behind bars, before he chased it away by concentrating on her face once more. Good, then don't. Her expression changed. What? He asked. I wish I could hug you again. Not unless you want me to get arrested for public indecency. Oh, no, of course not. Her blush and lowering of her eyes elicited a low growl from him. It went straight to her loins like a lightning bolt. Her gasp ended in a slight moan, and she quickly clamped her lips shut tightly. What was wrong with her? Right, I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. And maybe you get chapter number 2 as well. Ah. Bye.